Hello, everybody, and welcome to the extended interview with Sarah Kurtenbach with the KB Group. I'm Sam, the content specialist at KeyMedia Solutions, and we just got done filming our 10 at 10 live Facebook show. Went really well, and what we did is we focused on influencer marketing. We had some really good conversations about influencer marketing, really kind of, I'd say, top level type of questions. So if you're interested in learning kind of the basics about influencer marketing, I encourage you to go check out that past episode. I think that'd be really helpful into just kind of getting your foot in the door about influencer marketing. Our goal for today and our goal for this extended interview is basically to take step number 2 and to talk a little bit about what that looks like and kind of for businesses deciding is influencer marketing right for them and you know, different things along those lines. So a little bit further down the path.
Excellent.
So before we do that, do you want to take a little bit and kind of reintroduce yourself to everyone who's tuning in who maybe hasn't seen the 10 at 10 live show?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Kurtenbach. I'm the founder of the KB Group, and we are a consulting company where we specialize in 2 things, and that is we consult with tech startups. And the other thing is we do social media consulting, specifically Facebook and Instagram ads, and then also now layering in influencer marketing consulting as well too. My background is I worked at a Facebook preferred marketing developer for over 6 years in Atlanta and in New York City. Built the company up to be a multi-million-dollar company, opened up their New York office. We got acquired, worked post-acquisition, and then 3 years ago moved back home to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to get married. So
very good.
It's a little bit about me.
And then now you're here.
And now I'm here, in the land of dreams.
Yes, very good. So we're going to jump right into it. We did spend a little bit of time talking about, businesses, or at least we brought it up, that businesses need to decide if influencer marketing is right for them.
Right.
So could you talk a little bit about how does a business go about making that decision? What are some different things that they look at, or how do they go about making that decision? Do we start influencer marketing? Do we go down that path?
Yeah. So I would say there's businesses who are more riskier than others, and there's businesses who are willing to test things more than others. There's going to be some businesses out there that just do not like testing new things. They kind of have their recipe, they're set in their ways, and that's okay. You keep doing what you're doing, But if you're a business where you're willing and you're wanting to test something new, why not test influencer marketing? And what I recommend is if you're at the point where you're like, okay, maybe we should actually test an influencer marketing campaign and see if it works, one of the best approaches to help save your precious marketing dollars, because that's the thing, right? We all have just a set budget for the year. It's really hard to get more budget unless you get more sales. So you want to make sure how you're spending your money is actually making you money. So what I recommend, one of the best ways to at least start influencer marketing and test it first, is to partner with influencers who are willing to accept either your product or your service for free in order to make content about it. It could be a short video, it could be an image post, it could be a blog post about their experience. Because this way, at least you're not technically spending your marketing dollars, you're giving out product, but it helps to save that budget to the side. And then if you test this out, you see if it works, then maybe you can start working with bigger influencers who are more willing and more likely to be able to accept money from you because they have bigger audiences, their content's more professional, things like that.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think it makes a lot of sense because often, you mentioned maybe some people don't like taking those risks, or maybe some people do, but they can't get it approved.
Right.
So maybe that's a challenge. But what I like about what you said is by maybe offering a product, in exchange instead of using that budget, what it can do is it empower that person who said, let's try this. We're not going to spend any money.
Yes.
And they can take those results, look how well this did,
right.
Take it to those people who do have the authority to make that decision and say, look at the benefit we got from this. We didn't even put any money behind this.
Right.
Now, maybe they get a little bit more leeway. So maybe that's a little bit of kind of an empowering type thing for those people who maybe don't have the authority to make that decision.
For sure.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a small, medium business and you don't have the mega $1 million budgets that a Fortune 500 media company would have. Let's say you're a boutique owner, or let's say that you own a spa or something like that. I mean, what a great way to be able to test influencers is just by sending your product, sending some of your clothes to some women either in your community Or maybe women outside of your community, if you want to drive e-commerce sales, have them just wear your clothes. They can keep it. That's their form of payment. Or if you're a spa, they could come and get a free treatment and then make this whole kind of like short video or blog about their treatment and how much they love the experience. And maybe you could even give them a coupon code or something for people to use too. So
I think that's great. I think that makes a lot of sense. So leading into the second question that I have for you, we talked a little bit about, so maybe you've made that decision. All right, influencer marketing, I think could be something good for our business.
Right.
I think this is something that we should try. Maybe we're going to offer them a product or something like that. So my next question is, where do we find influencers? Where do we go about? Because it's really nice to say that, influencers, all over the place.
Sounds so fancy.
Yeah. So where would you recommend that people start looking? What are some of the resources that they can take advantage of to make those connections?
Totally. So it kind of depends on what your marketing budget is.
Sure.
So the big boys, they always work directly through their ad agencies, or they'll work with the social media marketing company to, in essence, do it all for them. It's like a full service. They're like, we want to do this. Here's our goals. Here's our target. Here's a flight date. Here's the budget. Do it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have that luxury, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that you have to do it all yourself. So what I recommend is the best way to at least start is to actually find advocates within your own audiences already. Who are your own customers or people that already follow your Instagram page or subscribe to your YouTube page that could not only be a great advocate for you, which would be a genuine voice, but their audience also correlates with who your target consumer is. So that's a super easy way, because the nice thing to it is if you're a small, medium business, a lot of people aren't going to know who you are, right? Outside of your customers. So otherwise, if you're reaching out to like a stranger and you're like, hey, we're like, I would love to maybe hire you or give you some free product, they're going to be like, who are you? So it's a good way to start with your own clientele first. The other thing is, if you're having trouble finding maybe like a really strong advocate / influencer with your own clientele, another good way to do it is there are some influencer marketing tools out there that in essence will give you almost like an online dashboard you can log in where you can view all these different influencers. I mean, thousands and thousands of different influencers. And it's a really easy way to literally click, like connect, or I want to send this influencer a message and see if they'd be interested in working with me. And it'll give you some of their audience insights and everything too. So that's a really nice way to do it. You will have to pay for that service, of course. And the time, you're gonna have to spend so much time sourcing through all this huge list, but it's another option as well.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And so I think you kind of touched on something else. Obviously, so kind of flowing where our conversation is going, so we've decided that influencer marketing is something that we want to take advantage of. We've looked around and we've, looked at our customers, we've looked at the databases and things like that.
Right.
What does that first conversation look like? So how do we say, knock on the door and say, hey, I want to do influencer marketing. So how would you recommend that a business or somebody take that first step and make that introduction?
For sure. So I would say there's one thing that a business should always do before you do outreach. So let's say you did all the steps you just mentioned, like you looked through your clientele or you looked through a dashboard, you have like a list of influencers that you believe and know would be really perfect to test this campaign. The first thing you need to do is you need to do your own research and do a brand safety check on these influencers to look back and see what kind of content they're creating. First of all, to see if it aligns with, kind of your brand voice and who you are, but you also, most businesses anyway, don't want to partner with somebody who's posting a lot of profanity, obscene content, stuff like this. For example, we were just putting together a proposal for a large athletic wear company. And so we had this influencer. We're like, oh, this influencer could be perfect. And then we started doing a brand safety check on her. And sure enough, about 4 weeks ago, she was posting all these pictures of her at the club, doing all this stuff. And we're like, that's not going to fly. So we totally took her out of the plan. So do your own brand safety checks first. Let's say they pass the brand safety checks. They're going to be great. There's a couple key questions you're going to want to ask the influencer. So the first thing is you're going to want to ask them for content examples of things they've done with other brands, because you can see some of that stuff yourself, but they also probably have a portfolio that they use to send to brands of content that they've done. So you can see, is their content good, or is it maybe you don't want to work with them? So content examples. The other thing is you're going to want to ask them for any type of audience insights that they have. Again, this is just to reconfirm that their audience aligns with who your target is. Because a lot of times the influencer marketing dashboards you can source through influencers, they'll pull insights from Twitter because Twitter has the most open API. But a Twitter audience is totally different than an Instagram audience. So you'll want to ask them for the audiences of their specific social media platforms. Then the other thing is you're going to ask them for any type of engagement rates that they have, because that's the other thing. They might have, a majority of their audience see their posts, but if nobody's taking action, engaging, clicking through to the website, it usually means people either don't care about what they're posting, or it means maybe they bought fake followers.
Yep, that's a great point. I'm not going to go on a rant, I promise. But I could.
We could.
But you make a very, very good point. There are influencers out there that have this huge following, and I love what you said. You really need to take a look, and I love that you said engagement rate, because I have talked multiple times on our 10 to 10 live show about how reach is dying. And so it's harder and harder and harder to get reach. And so what I've predicted is that reach is no longer going to be the unit of measurement that's going to determine success. Instead, it's going to be the engagement rate. And so I think that is so accurate what you're saying, and take advantage of what you said. Ask them what their engagement rate is, because I think that would be, an eye-opening experience. And the people who maybe bought the following or not an accurate following are not going to be able to deliver that engagement rate, because ultimately that's what you want.
Exactly.
That's a great point. I think that's really important for people to realize, especially when it comes to Facebook. Get your eyes off of the reach. Instead, focus on what's happening with your content. Oh, I think that's a great point.
It's so true. And honestly, influencers buying fake followers is a huge issue. So brands have to be really careful of that too. And in fact, there's an influencer marketing company that did this test where they started fake profiles, 3 fake profiles. They literally hired the same girl to go out and for a day just took photos all over Santa Monica Pier, posted those photos on social media, and a couple days later she had contracts from 3 brands, and it was a fake person. Brands have to be super careful. So that's why the engagement rate is going to be important. And then the last thing is cost. You're going to want to ask them what's the cost associated to either creating an image post, maybe a short form video like 15 to 30 seconds, or if they're a YouTube vlogger, long form video like 3 to 4 minutes. Because every time you go up in scale, it's going to be more expensive. And then you're going to want to ask them about rights. Like, do I have the rights to the content as well too? Can I reuse it, whether for my own social media pages and websites, or can I put paid behind it? So those are the core key questions that'll help you to really start navigating and choosing which influencers are going to be best for you.
Perfect. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, continuing with our conversation, kind of our example that we're going down. So first, as a business, we decided, influencer marketing is right for us. We took a look. We said, here's a couple of influencers. We did our brand safety check. We said, okay, these 2 didn't pass. This one looks like it's good to go. The engagement rate is good. We got him or her and decided, this is what we're going to do. They said, we're on board. We got everything figured out. And now they produce content. And so what you said, I think is really important is, check about the rights. And so my next question is, okay, so what do we do? And let's maybe just focus on social media. So how do we handle the distribution of that influencer branded content? Now, do we go in and say, look what happened, this influencer did this, and share all this stuff? Or what are some best practices as to kind of post content creation and working with that influencer? Do we just sit back and say, okay, you do your thing and we'll just reap the benefits and hope everything just kind of comes in? Or what's that process look like?
Totally. That's such an awesome question, because influencer, the best way to do it is really a 2-pronged approach. One is working with the influencer for their super custom content and having them post it on their own social media pages or blog. And then the other part is paid distribution. Because what you were talking about, the algorithm changes, a lot of times there's only going to be so much that you can get organically. So you have to put some extra ammo behind it. What we've seen, the best approach and recipe right now anyway, right? This could change today.
Yes, it could.
But at this moment, is once the influencer posts that content on their social media profiles, we always recommend that the brand takes that content in the raw images and makes a post themselves on their social media platform.
Yeah.
Not just share, but make their own posts, because then it's like they kind of own it as well too.
Yeah.
It's not just them sharing it. They're literally saying like, we have a partnership with this
Sure.
person. So we always recommend that they do that across all their social media channels. Then the other part is when it comes to the paid distribution. So there's really two ways you can do paid distribution with an influencer. One way is if you run the ads yourself from your own brand's fan page. So I'm the brand, I'm gonna log into my ad manager, and I'm gonna just run, an ad campaign using that content. The other way is what's called whitelisting in influencer marketing. And this is where the influencer gives, in essence, you as the brand rights, like advertiser rights, or maybe they are really fancy and they have like a team that can run ads for them on their behalf, depending on how big they are. But then what will happen is it'll be a paid ad, but it'll come from the influencer's page instead of yours. So I've seen this happen a lot, especially with beauty brands. So Ulta does this a lot, Ulta Beauty. They'll work with all these beauty influencers, and then they'll have the influencer actually run a paid program from their own Instagram or from their own Facebook page. So it's like this beauty influencer is actually promoting it instead of Ulta just promoting it. Honestly, both ways are great because you still are going to be able to apply all the different targeting tactics and tracking and measurement and stuff as well too. It just depends on what's best for you. And some influencers will not give the whitelisting rights.
See, that's what I was going to ask. It sounds like it almost depends on. So maybe that's something to consider when you're choosing an influencer. Take a look at their past experience, who's they worked with in the past. Because if that's something that you're like, we need control, this is what we want, and the influencer just goes, well, no, that's not what I'm going to do.
Totally.
And that can play a role in your decision process about who to work with.
Yes. And always keep in mind that every time you ask for something more from an influencer, especially if they're a pretty savvy influencer who's worked with brands before, they're going to ask for more money.
Sure.
So if you want the paid rights to run from your own social media platforms, they could be like, all right, well, that's going to be a $15,000 flat fee to get those paid rights. Or if you're like, we actually want you to whitelist it and we're going to give you the budget, but you run it, they'll be like, okay, well, that's going to be $25,000 to do that. Yeah. So it'll cost you more the more you ask for. It all just depends on what you as a brand wants, and your core goal of the campaign too.
Sure.
So
I think that makes a lot of sense. And with that, I kind of think our example is really kind of keep going. And so now we're talking about how to work with and post, content creation, how to kind of nurture that relationship.
Right.
And really, I just kind of like to finish by asking you, is there anything else, if you were to provide just general recommendations for people about influencer marketing, just to kind of finish things up, is there any final thoughts that you have about influencer marketing itself, or do you think there's anything else that you think is important that gets said about it?
Yeah. Oh man, that's such a good question. I would say we kind of touched base on this, but as a brand, just really be careful of influencers with fake followers. Because it is a huge issue. I always get questions about that. The other thing is with all of the Facebook Cambridge Congress debacle, they're both Facebook and Instagram. They're going to get a lot of things. I guess kind of like not necessarily taken away, but they're going to have to shut some things down. They already have. Yeah. They are going to continue, which means that as a brand, this could technically hinder the type of data that you can get back from an influencer. I know that a lot of the influencer marketing companies right now who have the dashboards where they can pull in, this is the follower number for this person on Instagram. A lot of this data they can't pull anymore because the API has gone crazy. Yeah. So just be wary too of all the changes going on with Facebook and Instagram, because that will affect not just businesses, it's going to affect influencers, because influencers are a business as well too. Yeah. And then my last thing is test it out, test it out. I mean, why not have one person from your team just kind of take control over it, follow the guidelines, follow the steps, maybe start easy with some free product or free service and see how it works, Yeah.
I think that's great, and I think to leave it on that point, I think is totally accurate. With everything that's changing in the online marketing world that we live in today, when it comes to social media or online tactics, things are changing so fast.
Right.
So you have to stay up to date, but not just stay up to date. You have to look for what's new, and you have to see, okay, how can we change things up? Because you might be that business that you mentioned earlier that has their way. You have your recipe for success. Then all of a sudden something changes and throws a hinder in that recipe. And if you've just been, resting and saying this is we know what we need to do, then you're running into problems. So like what you mentioned, having that one person on your team that's, maybe we could try this, maybe we could try this, I think is incredibly important and a good way to really see success even in these trying times of social media when things are trying to get figured out. I think there's a couple of ways. People can either look at this and say like, well, we're done with that. Or you can look at it as a new opportunity to really try something different that's going to maybe take off.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is, when it comes to new marketing tactics, a lot of times you have to look at what's my risk to entry or what's my barrier to cost.
Sure.
And with influencer marketing, it's so low.
Yeah.
If you can just give them some free product or free service and you have one person from your team kind of like handle that component of it, then your risk is super, super low.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be, a set flat fee or some type of entry fee or anything like that.
Yeah.
So why not?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think that's really good. Thank you very much, Sarah, for being here today and to have this conversation about influencer marketing. I really think it's beneficial for everybody who's watching and everybody who's interested in influencer marketing. I think what you said is some really, really good information.
Great.
So with that being said, thank you for watching this if you did participate in this, and we will make sure that this is posted and distributed correctly. So if people want to get in touch with you or get in touch with the KB group, we'll make sure to have that information.
Perfect.
If you do have any additional questions for Sarah, for ourselves, please feel free to reach out. We'll have our contact information definitely available to you to ask those questions or to get in touch.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Thanks, Sam.
Yes, thank you very much.